Good morning. Lovely to see everyone here. Okay. More than 3 decades ago, a young girl stood before a desk in a tiny home office in Hong Kong. And she stared at it and mesmerized, and she sat at the chair behind it, at the revolving chair, and she sat on it and she twirled around in it. And when it came to a stop on the desk, there was a notepad and a pen which invited her, beckoned her to write. That day, a writer was born, and that writer was me. So, many years later, whenever people asked me, when did I decide to become a writer? Oddly enough, I never thought about this moment. I never thought about this when I was around 6 or 7 when this happened. I always thought about maybe I should tell people about the time I wrote that horrible Enid Blyton fan fiction, but then I thought that would give them a very bad idea about me. So writing was not something I took very seriously. Some years later, when I was in class 10 and I had to attend these career guidance classes, I felt that it was pointless for me because a few years before, when I was 12, my father had passed away, and I felt that a lot of my life had changed irrevocably after his death. So I felt that these classes were useless for me, and because I didn't really envision any sort of career for myself. And after second PUC, during second PUC, we had a similar talk by a writer, and I'm glad I attended that because that was where I had this epiphany that writing was something I was decently good at. I could do this. And writing was going to be my way out from this humdrum existence that I thought was my life. I thought that this is the way that my life was going to change. And I had no idea that because of writing would go on, this way out would go on to become my career. So here I am today, nearly 30 years later, a writer of more than 40 novels and counting. And writing for me was not just my bread and butter, was not just something that it was not just entertainment for me and for others, because that's what it was initially. Writing also gave me a sort of joy, because I was able to craft worlds with words. And if that is not magic, then I don't know what is. So writing eventually, of course, became a sort of a source of solace for me. In 2002, I was going through a personal loss, and I was not sure, what to do. How do I transfer this pain? And that was when I started writing my first novel, Kite Strings. I was not very sure about the entire process of writing a book. I thought that I was daunted by the idea of creating an entire, world inside at that time. But then my character, Mehnaz, came on the page and the words became hers. And the story went on. It took me a long time to get it published, but it was worth the wait. Another book which I wrote, which was published in 2014, is called More Than Just Biryani. And this book deals with, it is a sort of a saga, a story of 3 women and their journey and their connection with food, with each other. And I identified a lot with one of the characters, the main character, Zubi, who also loses her father at a young age. I didn't realize this, but I was using writing to try and understand myself and the world around me, trying to make sense of it. This was not something that I had really figured out, by then. Especially because writing was one point, writing was one thing. But publishing was another ball game altogether. And even though I had finished writing Kite Strings in 2006, it took me 3 years to find a publisher. Going forward, I've published with a number of publishers. I've published across, big publishers like Penguin and Bloomsbury and Hachette and now Westland. One thing that always made me hang back was that I write more than publishers could publish. So I needed to find a sort of balance. I was feeling very angsty about having all these books that I had written, but publishers were taking their own sweet time to bring it out. I understand their constraints also. They can't keep publishing just because I keep writing. So that was one of the reasons why I moved to self-publishing. And I got to know about the term hybrid writer, because a hybrid writer is one who publishes with publishers and also self-publishes. So self-publishing was a journey that I started in 2019. It was a very strange journey. My third novel, My Brother's Wedding, was published in 2013. And many of my readers wrote to me asking me, why aren't you writing a sequel for it? We want to read a sequel. And my publishers weren't interested. So I wrote it and then I self-published it in 2019. And I realized that it's fairly easy publishing on Amazon KDP. And it's very transparent. And this is what I should do since I can write so much. And that was how my first series, Jasmine Villa, was born. Interestingly, Jasmine Villa is no longer on Amazon KDP. It's been acquired by Westland and it's doing really well. I'm very happy with the entire, the way it's come out. So, but then I've also published other series, self-published other series. One thing that people ask me is, why did you move to self-publishing? So this was because I wanted to be able to publish whatever I wrote, whenever I wrote. However, one thing that I do want to tell people is that self-publishing is not easy. It's not something that, nothing guarantees you instant success. And one of the things that I like to ask people who want to be writers is, why do you want to write? So there are no correct answers for this. It's not like, whatever your answer it is, it's correct. But the reasons are important. For instance, if you want to write to become famous, that's perfect, that's perfectly all right. I also wanted to write and become famous. So if you want to write and you want to see your book in airport bookstores, in bookstores, get reviews in magazines, in newspapers, is that one reason? Or do you want to make money? Is that one reason? So if your reasons are the first two, which is becoming famous or seeing your books everywhere, then what I think it would be like, self-publishing is not the way, because it's very difficult to make your mark in self-publishing, become well known, because it's a very insular world. There are a set number of readers who want a certain kind of book, and you also have to write a lot and publish a lot. You basically have to treat self-publishing like a job. You have to treat it like a job, wherein especially you're not just the writer when you're self-publishing. If you are a publisher yourself, you are also taking care of the marketing, the cover design, all the various elements that go into self-publishing your book. So I've had a decent amount of success, but I also like to reiterate to everyone that it does not come easily. And whenever someone tells me that, oh, that person is an overnight success, I really would like to tell them that that success did not happen overnight. That person has worked very hard for it. In my case, I have been working and and writing since 2009. I spoke about how writing was joy, how writing brought joy for me, and how it brought me solace. And I also realized that writing was a form of therapy. 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, during the second wave of COVID, my life came to a standstill. My husband, my mother-in-law, both of them passed away within 5 days of each other. And I was also hospitalized. But I came back home alive and somewhat healthy, but not whole. I really felt like there was no point to whatever was happening in the world. everyone told me that I should live for my sons, and I had something to look forward to live for. I also wanted to live for myself, but I also felt like, what was the point? What was the point of anything? In this really, this miasma of pain, I again turned to writing, because while writing, I was able to transfer my pain to the page. There was a time during this period, when I couldn't talk. So I am a very talkative person. I talk a lot, but I couldn't talk. My throat was constantly locked up. Every time I tried to speak, my voice would break. And writing gave me that voice. I felt very strange about taking up writing at this time, especially writing something which seems frivolous, something as frivolous as a romance, when my whole life had crumbled before me. When I was writing a happily ever after for characters who did not exist, when my own happily ever after was not ever possible, it felt like I was cheating some sort of fate or whatever. But at the same time, I also felt I felt better about myself, because when I was writing, I was able to momentarily fool myself into thinking that the world was fine, that the world was normal. But then there was no normal. This was the new normal that I had to live with. And I eventually realized that writing was going to help me achieve that. Even if I took 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour from my day to get myself into the heads of these characters, then I was able to focus on something other than my pain and the hurt and that continuous angst of losing two people from my life. So a journey that began with a desk in my father's office, home office, is an ongoing journey even now. The only difference is that time I sat at my father's desk. Now I sit in a home office that my husband made. He built this home office in December 2020, and it was completed in January 2021. He barely used it for 2 months before everything went wrong. I could barely find myself, walking. I could hardly make myself walk inside that place. But then I realized that sitting there and working at that desk was not just a way of me accepting and moving on, but also I think it meant something for me overall, for my husband, and it was something that is very important to me. So now I sit and write at this desk, and I keep on crafting all these worlds with my words, and I hope to do so for a long time, and that's been my journey.